Chapter 2 The Girl. As the ice froze over the lake, Katie pulled up her finger and stood up. Her friend Susan looked at her like she was a freak. Then she ran back to Katie's parents' house in the city of Anchorage to tell them what she had just witnessed. Katie yelled over the icy pond, "Wait!" But Susan had gone behind a shed tapping some beer cans from the night before and was already up the street. It was morning in the summertime during a particularly frosty afternoon. There shouldn't have been a clear coat of ice to skate on, but somehow in her 17-year-old finger, Katie had done just that. She had frozen water in about 0.2 seconds with her touch. That wasn't the only thing she had done that day. One of the pine trees next to her was reduced to ash. It had burned up when she stared at it. Susan hadn't been present for that one. Instead, it was Michael, Katie's boyfriend. Susan had gone looking for Michael and Katie when they didn't come home the previous night. Everyone was out looking for the two teens. To tell you the truth, Katie didn't want to be found. She was fine with the solitude right now. She had only shown Susan because she had known her since middle school, and she figured that at this age they had been together so long. But never mind. Katie felt the chill Anchorage summer air as she cried. She didn't know what else she was capable of, but she figured it was best to not let what happened to Michael happen to anybody else. Michael and Katie had been going out for some time. During that night, Michael had pulled a move, and Katie could feel this excitement. But it wasn't sexual. It was like an energy was pulsating through her body. When the police arrived, they handcuffed Katie and put her in the back of a cruiser. She was crying the whole time, and she watched her parents as they teared up. It was a sad day in the Eisenhower residence. When she got to the station, the police questioned her. She wanted to just bawl her eyes out. But at the same time, she could feel that power, like she finally had a voice. She was Katie Eisenhower. She was the one who spoke, not them. That's when the suits showed up. First, it was just one of them. Then the whole of Anchorage was swarmed with men in black suits with sunglasses and dark-brimmed hats. A female agent held up a badge to the state policeman. It wasn't FBI, Katie knew that. They were too sterile looking to be FBI. There was something about them. She didn't know, maybe. No, she excused that thought out of her mind. Alien was the last thing that they could be. They looked human. Except not. One of the men held up a Geiger counter. It started beeping. He held it closer to Katie's chest. "Eisenhower," said the female agent as she held the ID she got from Katie's wallet sitting on the desk, along with the contents of her purse. Immediately, one of the agents pulled out a handgun and aimed it right at Katie's forehead. That's when she felt the surge. At first it was small inside of her, and then it blew like Kingdom Come. Suddenly she was no longer in the police station. Instead, she was standing in the desert. The highway sign said Roswell, New Mexico. Katie felt the energy go away. She looked through a window at the agent who reached through. Just as the arm past the cutoff hit and it was severed. Then Katie heard a loud boom in radio static. Then silence. It was coming from the warehouse behind her. A car passed, but it was almost like they couldn't see her. She walked through what seemed like a film in the air. It was soft and gooey. It tasted like strawberries. Then she was standing before something new. The warehouse was still there, and it did look abandoned, but this time it was different. It had all kinds of strange devices hooked up to it. Electronic devices. The boom was made by one of them. She walked over to the building. Suddenly, a man popped out from nowhere, just like she had a moment ago, only this time calmer and more controlled. "Hello," he said. "Oh, hello, Miss Eisenhower. We've been expecting you. This is the Roswell house. It's a halfway house for M's like yourself. I believe this is your first time." Katie looked at the makeshift lean-to. She thought about lying and then replied, "What's an M?" The man smiled. "Multiverse traveler. You can come here to rest any time you like." The man bowed and waved her in. He looked like a bum. He was wearing fingerless gloves, and it wasn't until she really caught his eye that she noticed he had three of them. One was in a sort of in-between space. It blinked 3 times and then flashed red. He nudged her. "It's impolite to stare," said the thingy, whatever he was. When she got into the building, it was filled to the brim with what looked like odds and ends of people. The homeless man made her think of her brother Ed, with his guitar on his back, picking up a ride the time he left their mom and dad's. She wondered if she would see him here. Probably not, though. Maybe he had the same gifts, but he had never told her. Maybe it was genetic, but her father never said anything, or her mother. She watched an exchange between two different beings, both talking gibberish. One of them looked her over. Then it spoke English as the giant frog handed over what had been given. "You look traumatized, poor dear," said the tall, lanky figure, with a robust female voice. "Come to Mama Ritz. She'll take care of you. You never know what shady characters or whereabouts. Come on, come." Katie looked over at three beings all talking in a huddled format. "They're just jealous, sweetie," said Mama Ritz. "I believe you met Jim. He's the welcomer. He does get a lot of company, though he wanted me to keep you safe here in case the oglers came back. They love to ogle, annoying pests. So it's not that often we get an Eisenhower into a halfway house. Would you like some soup?" she asked gently, ladling out from a market stand and paying some strange tokens. Then she poured the liquid over Katie's fingers, which had burn marks that reminded her of Michael. "Eagle, it's Robert's specialty." "Thank you, Robert," said Mama Ritz, as the thing in the stall, which was hidden in shadow, nodded its head, if it even had a head. "So have you talked to your brother Ed recently, dear? He's all the rage in Cabo. I hear he saved a planet of Dwalfians, though the Dwalfians don't think much of it. But I shouldn't think they think much of anything at all. They're Dwalfians." Mama Ritz laughed and let her head fly back, and it popped off her neck and started to float through the air around in a kind of circular motion. "Would you like to see my ship?" asked Mama Ritz questioningly. Katie nodded. "Good, dear," replied Mama Ritz. When they boarded the metal vessel, Katie asked, puzzled by the creature's strange facade, "What are you?" Mama Ritz gave a toothy grin. "I'm half bog, half hog. But don't call me bog hog, that's insulting. Boy, the stories I could tell a baby traveler such as yourself. I've been everywhere and anywhere in the multiverse. I've even co-piloted for Hansel and Gretel. You know, the twins." "No, I have no idea," said Katie. "You don't?" replied Mama Ritz. "Sit, dear, while we're in takeoff. I'm going to have to do your nails." "Oh, lovely. So." Mama Ritz talked for several hours, and as she told these outlandishly wild stories about everything from a family of protozoan kings to a warship made entirely out of Chinese paper, Katie totally forgot about the world she left behind. She felt home at last. Michael's death still weighed on her, though. She hadn't expected to stick around after her senior year anyways, and this seemed like a great adventure. She figured she wasn't in prison at least. She thought back to the fire in his burning flesh, and then the oglers in their sterile black suits and strange faces. They almost looked like masks. Then a large red button began flashing on the dash. Mama Ritz jumped, smearing the nail polish, which was a bright red. "Oh dear, not the red button. Anything but the red button," replied Mama Ritz. Katie looked puzzled. "What's the red button?" Mama Ritz's head popped off again. "In-laws, dear," she said with a frown. The hailing signal turned on and the screen blew up suddenly. Mama Ritz gave a fake smile as her head calmed down. "Mom, Dad, how are you? And Liza, how's he doing?" The two creatures looked very stern. The one on the right answered first. "Not good, considering you left him on the altar." Mama Ritz smiled. "You know, it was always about the money. You Findorians and your pocketbooks." Mama Ritz gave a contorted chuckle, cringing, and motioned to something for Katie to press. It read, "In case of emergencies." She hit the button, which flashed, and then the screen went black. From the blank screen, one of the two aliens said with a glum tone, "Did she fire on us? My God, we'll have to sic the military." Mama Ritz cringed. "You might want to buckle in, dear. It's gonna be a bumpy ride." Suddenly, the ship went vertical and Katie fell against the wall. Mama Ritz, however, was floating in midair. Katie felt the shudder of the torpedoes against the hull. Mama Ritz hit the button on her left, and then her right, and then did a series of tapping motions at floating holograms in the air. The controls were constantly buzzing, and she was twisting knobs. "Well, this is unexpected," replied Katie. "You don't talk much, do you, hun?" replied Mama Ritz harshly. Then as a final blast hit the ship, they crash-landed somewhere in the multiverse. Katie looked up through the glass ship, was toting away through the atmosphere. "I wonder what could make them run away like that. You'd think they'd want confirmation that you were dead." Mama Ritz sat in a puddle of tears. "My ship, my beauty, she won contests 3 years running. How will I get my go-go nuts now?" Katie picked herself up out of a door in the side of the vehicle to breathe fresh air. "Wait," said Mama Ritz. "Well, too late. Could be poisonous." Katie smiled for once in her sad little depressing existence. "So what are go-go nuts?" she asked. "Well," replied Mama Ritz, but she was interrupted by the sound of something sinister. They were on an ice shelf, and Katie looked up at the giant bunny rabbit that was looking her dead in one eye. But this was no bunny rabbit. Its teeth opened wide and they were sharp. The sound was like 1,000 spiders crawling up her arm. Then its skin turned inside out, and it gave the single creepiest smile in the entire multiverse. Yep, it was definitely going to eat them. That's when a giant explosion rocked the sky, and a man came down in a spacesuit. He lit something, and a flame about 6 feet high shot out from the combustion engine loaded onto his shoulder. The creature suddenly started to shrivel tinier and tinier. "Man, what a day, Mama, you look healthy." "What happened at the ceremony? Did he leave you at the altar?" "I really hate Mandalorian parasites. They latch on and they never let go. So where are you guys headed?" Mama Ritz gave his spacesuit a kiss on both cheeks. "Candelian, why, it's good to see you. How's your mother? Did she try on that sweater I knitted for her last Judah?" Candelian flipped open his helmet to reveal a man's face. "He's cute," thought Katie. "We were heading to the Archipelago system to find Ed," replied Mama Ritz. "You mean we're going to find my brother?" asked Katie. We may have to rescue him from the oglers, my dear. But yes, Candlian, get the poor girl a spacesuit. We've got to get there before the oglers take him down. The poor boy was exhausted last time I met him, and he was practically raving mad about the formula. Candlian frowned. The Archipelago Formula? Last time I heard, that was a myth. Nobody's seen an updated copy in 12 billion millennia. Did he find it? That's what we're trying to find out, replied Mama Ritz, waving a finger back at the girl, sassily. Candlian looked taken aback. No, you mean that's Katie? In the flesh, replied Mama Ritz, as Katie stepped over a rocky crag. I haven't seen her since she was a baby with her father in the Edian system. Ed came through her here looking for the Space Rangers, from what I heard last, but they vanished somewhere in the Kush mountain range. That must have been 10 years back, replied Candlian. You know my father? Asked Katie. Sure do. Served with him proudly in the reserves. We killed 12 million oglers, damn things. Parasites on the multiverse. They just kept breeding until they finally ended up cornered in the archipelago system. Then they had to sterilize so that they wouldn't overflow, replied Candlian. Apparently they're on Earth, replied Mama Ritz. You don't say. I wonder why they showed up there, asked Candlian, looking curiously at Katie. Mama Ritz smiled. Doc and the Space Rangers are old friends. I think I can get us to Doc if you provide me with a ship. No can do. Mine's due for maintenance. But I can get you to a dealer. Anything for an old M, said Candlian. His name's Navatu. Real crafty fella. Great at jambalaya dice. We'll see about that, said Mama Ritz with gusto. We've got an Eisenhower. Katie looked up at Mama Ritz and pointed to her chest. You mean me? No, I can't. Mama Ritz smiled. It's easy. You just roll a 7 or an 8. If you roll a 7,